It's time for another episode of Tucson Means Business, featuring Tucson's top entrepreneurs and leaders in the business world. And now your host, Mark Bishop.
And welcome to another Tucson Means Business. And if you're in the film industry or like the film industry or always been excited by it, you're going to enjoy today's guest, I can promise you. I'm referring to Mark Hedley, a film producer. And the show is, of course, brought to you by the 49ers Golf and Country Club, situated out there on Tancaverde Road. And what with everything that's been happening for quite a few months, we've had just takeout. Well, the restaurant is open, but with all the criteria, you know, the apart of feet and distancing and so on, and masks are still on with serving and what have you, so all the precautions are being taken. But the restaurant is open. Of course, you can still ring up and order and take away. And I think the pool is open and the golf is still going. So, you know, you're welcome to do that. But the gym isn't open yet. So, but the dancing is still on. So the 49ers Golf and Country Club, thank you. Wonderful sponsors of Tucson Means Business. My guest today, Mark Hedley, he draws from the experience that started as a teenage actor in American Westerns. Now, for some of you, you're going to remember early as he was encouraged by his mentor director. Remember John Huston? Well, he sort of encouraged him to work behind the camera. So, Mark Hedley, welcome to Tucson Means Business.
Great. Thank you for inviting me, Mark.
You're most welcome. Well, you were introduced to Mr. Huston via the star of Life and Times. I remember that movie of Judge Roy Bean, Paul Newman, right?
Oh, yeah. Listen, that was a great film to watch and a great film to be involved in. You know, it was terrific. I guess I'll tell you the story how I met, John Huston. Some people that are not movie buffs, John Huston is a legend. He directed African Queen with Katharine Hepburn, Humphrey Bogart. The Man That Would Be King with Sean Connery. Moby Dick. He was, just a filmmaker's filmmaker. Anyway, he came to Tucson to do Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean. The star, of course, was Paul Newman. I was a kid, teenager, and I thought I wanted to be an actor when I grew up. Okay. So I'd always follow Paul Newman around, bug him, ask him questions. The extras coordinator, Frank Kennedy, would come to me and say, listen, don't bug the actors. Okay. You're an extra, stay in the corner. Anyway.
And now you're only a kid at this stage, right? We're talking, how old?
Yeah, I was a kid, didn't know much about the film industry at all, so I'd sneak over again and chat with Paul Newman. He was real friendly. And at one point I asked Mr. Newman, I said, before you do a scene, you go over and talk to this old white-haired gentleman. Why is that? And he says, well, Mark, let me introduce you. So he takes me over, and here's a actor of yours. He didn't call me an extra. He said, here's one of your actors on Life and Times of Judge Roy Bean, Mark Hedley. So anyway, John Huston puts his hand down. I'm shaking John Huston's hand. I'm looking up at him, and I say to him, excuse me, sir, but what do you do? John Huston laughed that John Huston laugh, and he said, well, son, I'm the director. And it was like the voice of God. And then I followed John Huston around the rest of the movie. They were here for 3 months.
Amazing. So, absolutely amazing, because Huston, big name, a lot of wonderful movies. And this is Tucson Means Business. And the reason I've got, by the way, folks, Mark in on this, is we're talking money coming into Tucson. The old days when movies were made here, this place rocked like a gold mine town. And you know what? Everybody's working hard to try and get it back again that way, but it takes time. And Mark is working on this right now with a new movie that's going to be made here. Now, you were only a young lad at that point, but that's possibly when you decided that this was the work for you, right? This is what you wanted to do the rest of your life.
Yeah, I always encourage, everybody, including my 18-year-old son, pursue what makes you happiest, okay? Try to make a living doing what you want to do, but I decided, and it's always been kind of a up and down roller coaster ride, but it's been interesting. Film industry is probably one of the hardest industries in the world because it's a combination of all the arts and all aspects of business. And again, I've been with it, for so many years. It's still not an easy business.
And even harder today, the way things are. But you continued working on such films as McClintock with John Wayne. When I was a kid, he was my favorite, the Duke. Monty Walsh with his friend Lee Marvin. And countless other movies, yeah. I don't know if you know this or not, Mark, but Lee Marvin used to come down under to Australia to go deep sea fishing every year up near Cairns on the Barrier Reef. And
really?
He loved it. About $500 a day. He got the boat, beer, an esky full of beer, and the food and the lunch, and he'd go out all day. And I tell you what, that was a strenuous bit of work. These are big fish. And he would sit in the chair strapped in, and, it can take you up to maybe 4 or 5 hours just to get one in, to net it in.
Right.
So he was a big fella.
Lee Marvin had a house here in Tucson.
Right. So he did,
here. He was a Tucsonian. And, and I had the pleasure of working with him on not only on movies, but I convinced him. I had a film arts group back in the 70s. And I got Lee Marvin to come down and talk to some of the students about acting, about the film business. And he was a gracious man. He was an incredible individual.
And a good actor. Still one of my favorite movies with him was The Dirty Dozen.
Oh, yeah.
I loved that thing,
Classic.
Yep. You even got the pleasure and honor of working with Frank Sinatra, Old Blue Eyes, right?
Oh,
Chairman of the board. And the movie was called Dirty Dingus McGee.
Yep, he did that in Tucson.
Yeah, that was down in Tucson as well, huh?
Exactly.
And Andy Warhol on The Lonesome Cowboy. Was that a hit or did that fizzle?
Well, it was banned everywhere. And
why was it banned?
Well, it was Andy Warhol, and I'll tell you a quick story. When I was on set, with Andy Warhol, and Bob Shelton at that point owned Old Tucson, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Bob was up in his office. Andy was getting everything ready for the cowboys and cowgirls on their horses and everything. Bob Shelton comes out, and Andy Warhol has all these actor and actresses on horseback, totally nude, completely naked. Okay. Bob pulls Andy aside, and I kind of, over listening, and Bob very kindly says, "Excuse me, Andy, but you can't do this. In half an hour, I've got tourists coming in with their kids from Minnesota."
Oh, God, stone
so
the crows, yeah.
you can do this, but take it further out in the desert. So that's what we did.
Go out with the rattlesnake.
It was banned. It was basically an Andy Warhol extravaganza.
Wow. Get your head around that one. Let's talk about you. You ended up leaving Arizona for the goldfields of California.
Yep.
You've had a stellar career, really, as a producer and a line producer, being privileged to produce such films as Stand-Ins, Visioneers. Yeah, I remember that one. Tell us about those, Mark, if you would. What is the role of a producer for our listeners versus a line producer?
Well, there's different types of producers. A producer, and then back in the days in the 30s, 40s, and 50s, 60s, a producer like David O. Selznick, who produced Gone with the Wind, okay?
Mm-hmm.
A producer would be responsible for everything. Hire the actors, hire the director, okay the script. These days, it's rather confusing because you'll see movies now with 4 or 5 producers. Who does all that work? It's split up amongst different producers.
Well, you often see maybe 6 executive producers.
Yeah, now executive producer, those are the people responsible for the money. They bring the money in. That's the hardest part of doing a movie. You can't make a movie without money. So you have your executive producer, and then your producer is the guy or girl that puts all of it together. Okay. And I usually, when I'm producing, I only have 1 or 2 other producers that I share, the work with. But a producer, the definition of a producer is putting everything together.
Now we're talking, we're talking the creative, right?
Well, the creative and the financial. As a producer, I figure out, number one, I work with an executive producer. They have the money. I go to the executive producer and say, well, we need X number of dollars to do this movie. And they say, fine. And then I do a budget. Okay, usually it's about a 30-page document, and I've got everything lined out to the penny. This is what it's going to cost, for the director, for the actors, for the sets, for the locations.
Right.
And then the executive producer usually says, all right, fine. Just so long as you keep on budget, I'm good with it. So they turn over the money, I spend it, make the movie, and then I turn it back over to the executive producer because the executive producer wants to sell the movie and make their money back. Okay. And I've done about 60 feature films as a producer, and most of my films have made their money back.
So, well, that's very good. But how do you know in advance? Because things can go wrong, right? And then you end up over budget, obviously, just like a business. It's like a business.
Right.
You've got to be careful. When that does happen, do you have to sort of like crawl back to the executive producers and say, look,
no. What happens is, I have department heads, and I say, okay, you have, maybe you have, $15,000 for this, $25,000 for this department. Okay. Now I give them the budget, and if they exceed the budget, or they want to exceed the budget, they come to me and explain why they want to spend more money. Then from there, I go to the executive producer, and it's a yes or no. You want to spend extra money for this? I explain, and I usually bring in the department head, and the executive producer will say, okay, fine, I'll spend the extra money, or no, I don't have any more money to spend. So all my films get approvals, and they don't go over the approved budget of the executive producer. That's important.
And if it did and you couldn't get the money, is it a case of going back and snipping out scenes, or you've just got to balance it out with what you got, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's pre-production, like the film I'm currently producing here in Tucson.
We're going to talk about that as well. Yeah,
two more months of pre-production. That's planning. That's working with all the department heads, laying out everything that we need to do. I had an approved budget 2 months ago. And everybody right now is following the guidelines, following the budget. And I usually leave about, a 10% what they call contingency.
Sure, right.
So,
well, that's just like business too. So
it is a business. It's a big business.
Yeah. We're talking about the pre-planning. Now, if it comes from a book, there's obviously fees to the author, right? Or to their managers, I guess. And what else could there be? If you've got, there's script writers, there's screenplay.
Well, you work for hire. Usually, you make a deal with the screenwriter, pay the screenwriter for their services, and they go away.
And what does the screenwriter do?
Well, there's several different types of ways to get. I mean, also like the Academy Awards, they have screenplay based on a book or whatever,
right?
Or they have original screenplays. Now I work usually with original screenplays, meaning somebody sat down for a couple of months, 2 or 3 months, maybe a year, writing a screenplay, and then I pick that screenplay to produce. Okay. That's, if I go back, if I have a writer that has something based on a book, which often happens, then I've got to get rights to that book to do a screenplay. Then I got to get rights to the screenplay. So it gets a little bit more complicated.
Okay. So we're in the pre-plan stage. You're basically getting everything down pat, getting ready to physically shoot and make the movie.
Correct.
Okay. In the pre-plan stages. Now, in reality, your experience, well, I sort of, after speaking with you about contingencies and budgets and everything else, that'd give me a headache, I tell you. Your experience blends the creative and the technical aspects of filmmaking, but would it be fair to say that your true genius, if you like, lies behind the scenes? The nuts and bolts aspects of movie production. They're the key to making any successful film, right?
Yeah, exactly. Because so many people... I like to use an example. If you want to become an attorney, okay, it takes 7 years of school, okay, and you got to get a license. Same thing as a doctor, okay, but and even if you want to go into real estate, you're going to have to go to some kind of real estate school, and you get a license. Now, to be a producer, you only need $14.75 and get a card.
What's the
you
card?
don't need a license.
Is that SAG card, is it?
And you raise the money.
That's it. Okay.
So being a producer is the easiest thing in the world. The hard part is getting the money.
Yeah. So the executive producers, they're the ones that have got a hobnob at the parties and God knows what, or go to the
usually after like a half a bottle of champagne, you know, you got a deal.
So is it
you call them the next morning before they recover from the hangover, and you rush over with the contract.
Now, this part interests me because I know at the very other end of the scale, we've got the world premieres at Cannes or Cannes, however you want to pronounce it, and we've got different film festivals, and that's the end product where people go, and if they love what they see, blah, blah, they might go and distribute it and pay for it and all the rest of it. But that's at the end of the scale. We're at the very beginning. We're trying to get money to make a movie from either a book that we love or has got enormous potential or a great idea or something, right? And we've got to get this. That tells me that if you're trying to get this dough from, you know, investors or studios, it's all about the verbal pitch of how excited you are of why this would be a successful movie and why it would sell.
Exactly.
Is that really sort of it?
There's 100 ways to sell a movie. You don't need to go to Cannes, although I went to Cannes for the last 15, 20 years.
It looks like a lot of fun, I got to tell you.
Yeah. And so Cannes is a lot of fun. You know, it's the biggest film party in the world, okay? Mm-hmm. They also have the American film market, which is in Santa Monica every November. But you make your movie, and then you approach everybody about it. You send out your screeners, and you get offers.
We're talking about approaching, you know, like for instance, there's Cannes or Cannes is one thing overseas, and then here we are though in America in November, right? And that's where was that again?
Santa Monica. It's called the American Film Market, and this is where people from all over the world congregate with all their movies. And we have buyers come from all over the world, from the different countries, to buy American product.
So when they come from all over the world, and the Americans as well, what do they have that movie on? What sample is it? Is it a full-length feature, or is it just the best bits of it, like a promo?
Well, at the American Film Market, it can be anywhere from people pitching an idea, looking for executive producers.
Oh, okay.
They could have a one-page synopsis. They could have a full screenplay. They could have a trailer to something that they started shooting, and or they could have a completed feature film, or they could have a completed feature film that's already sold in different foreign territories, and they want to sell to other territories.
Or break it into the States, maybe. You know, it might be an English film or an Aussie film or something like that has potential merit of really making it in America, where the big numbers are, right?
Yeah, and if you have a foreign film like a film done in Spain, an American producer might want to purchase it and dub it into English.
Okay.
And you watch Netflix, and Netflix is buying a lot of foreign films.
Yeah, I'm not happy about that, I got to tell you. And sometimes, mate, it's out of sequence. It's out of sync. You know, the mouths are closed while the verbal is happening, but then the lyrics are up. It's all over the place.
They should have shot it in English. What can I say?
Fascinating. You know, people want to know about the game. Okay, so you'd be pretty excited then if you got at one of these distributor dues, you know, the nod and a check, you know, with the promise of maybe the thing. Well, really, it finishes for what? For you when they buy it off you, because they now become the distributor who have to distribute it through theaters and what have you around the world. And that's where they make their money, right?
Yeah, selling DVDs, selling rights to TV, selling rights to maybe Netflix, you know.
Okay.
They go out and sell. Now, the problem with distributors, unfortunately, 85% of them are thieves. They'll want to take your film and sell it, and they want to keep the money. Okay. A lot of distributors, unfortunately, once a check goes from a territory into their account, it usually stays there.
Really?
So, as I said, it's
so even in that game, huh?
is tougher than actually making a movie.
Yeah, I tell you what, it's in everything, isn't it? Welcome to America. Well, it's everywhere, I guess.
Welcome to the world.
Welcome to the world with that industry. And yet there is a content shortage, isn't there, out there for but they're screaming for different content.
Well, everybody's frozen right now, even Netflix. Everybody's not producing. So right now there's going to be, there's enough content, but soon there's not going to be enough content, which is good for the independent that can get out there and knock off something, fairly quickly.
Right. It's Tucson Means Business with Mark Bishop here on Tucson Business RadioX, which, of course, this will be a podcast, and it'll stay on the channel so you can listen another time if you're busy or you want to tell somebody about it. And it goes on all the various podcast platforms around the globe as well. Now, we're talking with Mark Hedley, who's a producer, and really a lot more than that. He's done all sorts of things, and an ex-actor. He's working on a movie that's going to come out soon. Well, been put back a little bit now to shoot, but it's going to be done here in Tucson. Now, I want to ask you this. You're with Southern Arizona Video Productions that does feature films and live streaming. Do they help get films into production with casting and shooting as well?
Well, actually, I pretty much head up the features division, but I also work with them on live streaming, commercials, documentaries, corporate videos, everything and anything that you want to do in video or film, through Southern Arizona Video. They've been in existence for about 10 years here.
Yes, indeed. Sadly, you lost your...
Harry.
Part owner and CEO and so on. Harry Finders, a lovely gentleman, absolute wonderful soul. And he left. So Nick is now what?
Nick Murray is the current owner. They were partners. And unfortunately, when Harry I had the pleasure of working with Harry for about a year and a half before he passed. But a very generous individual, very knowledgeable. But pretty much Nick has picked up the gauntlet, and he and I are moving ahead.
That's great. That's good to hear. How did you get into the industry in the first place?
Well, originally, as I was about 14, 15 years old, and I had a friend of mine that was an extra in a movie. And he asked if I wanted to visit the set one day, and a film being shot here in Tucson. I said, sure. So I went down, and I was introduced to the lead actor, this black gentleman, and kind of hung out with him. And he was explaining, the process of movie making and this and that.
No, that wasn't Sidney Poitier, was it, by any chance?
Well, it was called Lilies of the Field.
Oh, okay.
Sidney Poitier is a very young man. He actually got the Academy Award for that movie.
For that one, yeah.
Okay? So I became friends with Sidney. We kept in touch. Later, I was Mayor Lou Murphy, one of the mayors of Tucson, great mayor, very supportive of film. Selected Bob Shelton and myself as co-founders of the Tucson Film Commission. Now, this was back in the 70s. Films were already coming in, but Mayor Lou Murphy said, hey, well, let's promote it through Tucson and get more films.
What was the difference then? Why was Tucson such a wonderful hub in those days for making movies?
So close to Los Angeles. Basically, and back in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, and into the 80s, Westerns were real big.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I grew up on watching American Westerns.
When you kind of saturate all the Westerns done in Southern California,
right,
you want to come to Old Tucson, okay, with the beautiful mountains, the saguaros, just, the desert country. So everybody came here making Westerns. So as a kid, I played a lot of Westerns. I rode horseback, got to shoot bows and arrows. I played an Apache Indian too. I'm part Apache. So I would play an Indian or, put my hair in a cowboy hat. Then I was a cowboy. And it was so much fun as a kid. I got to play cowboys and Indians on a real horse with real guns,
Yeah.
real bows and arrows.
Wow.
Working with John Wayne, Lee Marvin, all the greats.
You make me envious, my friend.
was
I mean,
fun.
we played in backyards with bows and arrows, and I was once even Fez Parker, Daniel Boone.
Oh, right.
No, Davy Crockett, because I had a Davy Crockett beautiful hat with a ponytail.
So did I with the whole the raccoon.
They were marvelous. They were absolutely marvelous. Because Australia, we had a very limited, only a small country, 25 million population, nearly 30 now. But, we grew up on American and British television. We really didn't have an industry ourselves in film and so on. Early stuff like They're a Weird Mob and what have you. Okay, some TV stuff started going, but it wasn't until Mad Max that we really started getting some, international acclaim. And and then it went on from there, of course. And look at the stars that have come out of Australia. I mean, not just actors and actresses. Well, today it's all actors, isn't it? I've got to get that right. But I'm talking about, what's his name? Directors too, and camera guys. He won a Logie, I think. Our camera guy. I just can't remember his name. But a lot of talent. And, of course, New Zealand has it, to offer as well. Yeah. Working with...
I got to mention something. Sure. I saw an Australian film years ago about the West in Australia. It was Ned
Kelly.
He was an outlaw.
Ned Kelly, right. That's right. Played by Michael Jagger.
Exactly.
Yep, I know that one.
Good film, and but you had your Wild Wild West yourself.
We did. Very different, but similar in other ways than when you think about it all. But the closest I ever got, I did a bit of acting when I was young, stage and so on. But I was in television up on the east coast of Australia, up near, in fact, in Townsville at the time, and they were making a movie. Out west a little bit from Townsville. I went out to cover it for a documentary and make a doco out of it. And it was surreal being on the set. And it made me realize just how hard the work was. Sometimes 20, 30, 40 takes. The same thing over and over. And I got bored, to be honest with you. I'll go in to do a voiceover or a production or something like that. They used to call me one time, Mark, get in there, do it, you're done. These guys,
that's the way I work.
Well, you got to watch the budget, though, right? What should be done in maybe 3 takes doesn't need 15 or 20.
Well, let me tell you something. One of my heroes who I worked with back in the day was Clint Eastwood.
Oh, yeah, I've always loved his work. Yeah.
Now, Clint Eastwood, one take Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
And basically the reason he said he would take 1 or 2 takes and move on because he grew up doing Westerns. And, horses would get impatient. Get the shot, before the horse starts moving around too much.
Right, okay.
And that's what he does to this day. He does 1 or 2 takes. And what I've learned over the years is, you can do 30 takes, but that actor is going to save the best take for last because he realizes you're going to work it. He's going to take his time and he's going to save his energy for that last 30 take. Okay. So
he's working up to it. If you have a
history of doing 1, 2, 3, he's going to punch it each time and give you the best he can.
There you go. And it takes a good director too to bring that out of people. But I loved, and people know him as Dirty Harry and all of that, but Play Misty for Me was one of my favorites with him.
Oh, God, yeah.
And he's made a lot of good, and now he's a great director as well. I mean, the guy's done it all.
Fabulous.
Hasn't he?
He cranks out a film a year,
Unbelievable. You're listening to Tucson Means Business with your host, Mark Bishop, and my special guest is Mark Hedley, who's the producer. It works for Southern Arizona Video Productions. He heads up the film and television division there in reference to producing and a lot of work for Tucson, bringing money to Tucson, and that's a wonderful thing. And it's proudly brought to us, this show, by the 49ers Golf and Country Club. And they got a word. They'll be right back, or we'll be right back, so don't go away. Lisa DeFalco is the Director of Fitness and Events at the beautiful 49ers Golf and Country Club. And don't forget, it's open to the public. And you may not want to play golf. You may not even want to go to the restaurant for a bite to eat, whether it be breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Maybe you're a fitness person. Boy, is there a lot at the club. Lisa, you have so much that the club can offer somebody.
Well, yes, we do. And we have a lot of things going on in the fitness center for all ages. We offer different kinds of classes, from Les Mills body pump to yoga. We even have boxing now.
Wow.
I know. We've got some boxing. We also have ballroom dancing for adults. We have lots of different kinds of dance
Ballroom
classes for
dancing
kids.
too. This goes on during the day, right?
Yes,
In the
during the
beautiful big new fitness center there at the club.
Yes, it is a beautiful fitness center.
Wow.
And we have lots of other activities for families who aren't really a member. You don't have to be a member to be a part of some of these programs. We work a lot with the school district, Tinkerverde Youth Programs, buses the kids from school to the club to do golf lessons, fitness classes, swimming. The junior high kids get to come on over and do some body pump. It's really amazing.
Isn't that a great thing? So they bus the kids there, and they must have a ball. I can imagine the smiles on their faces.
They're so adorable. We just love the kids. They have so much fun. It's a blast.
So there's plenty to do, and with summer coming up, of course, there's aerobics, isn't there, in the pool?
Yes, we have water aerobics in the pool, and we get a lot of people in for that. That's a really popular class. It'll change a little bit over the summer because we have a huge swim team. A lot of fun stuff with the swim team going on. And we also have junior recreation camps over the summer. A lot of things to do for the kids, and it's mostly all day. We work with Tucson Twistits. They come out and do some clinics. 72 Aquatics comes out, brings out their scuba equipment, and the kids get to go scuba diving in the pool, which is
cool.
Pretty cool.
Anybody listening can phone you on what, or contact you directly? How do they do that?
They go ahead and call. They can call the club at 749-4925, extension 211, or you can send us an email. Check it out on the website at 49erscc.com.
Lisa DeFalco. She is the Director of Fitness and Events at the famous 49ers Golf and Country Club. You're listening to Tucson Means Business. Now, Mark Hedley is my guest. What challenges has the company faced, particularly with COVID-19? What happens to a production company when all this goes on?
Well, we actually haven't missed a beat. It's the clients. The governor basically considered media companies essential businesses. So we've been open since day one. Okay. It's the clients like, live streaming that's we've lost concerts that we usually cover. We've lost.
Mm-hmm.
But we just recently, a couple of weeks ago, did a live stream graduation, high school graduation, which is interesting because we did it for Gregory School, and you can go online and get the live streaming. But it was almost set up like a drive-in movie.
Sure.
You had all the kids show up with their parents in a car, and they had the podium in the center. And we had, with the Pro Sound, a company we worked with down the block, set up an FM, which they hadn't done in years, to pipe in everything into the car radios. So everybody was able to listen, stay in their cars safely. And then when the diploma was to be given, the kid would get out of the car and get the diploma and get back in the car. Very safe.
But I mean, hats off to you. I mean,
graduation.
I think it's darn good because a lot of kids had to miss out. I mean, my next question was going to be, Mark, how do you overcome, these challenges of people not being able to do things?
You have to reinvent yourself. You have to adjust to just like in making a film, when something happens, you simply have to adjust to it. Keep shooting.
That's it. Maybe there's a movie there, short movie. Graduation.
We're doing a movie. We're doing a movie with interns. We have several interns that work with us,
right,
and help out, and they want to learn the film business. And I had them write a script, and it's called "Bring Out Your Dead," and it has news clips from all this craziness. The protests, the riots.
Ah, okay.
And it's all about what's going on right now. We're going to start shooting with these interns next week because we have all this equipment here, just gratis. We're going to give them the equipment, and they're going to go out and make a feature film. Why not?
Why not? Good on them.
Move forward.
Let me ask you, Mark Hedley, what project would you say that over the years and everything you've done, what are you most proud of?
Well, actually, the film Stand-ins, which I
remember the name. Who was in it?
Well, people, Daphne Zuniga, who
She was gorgeous. Yeah.
Yeah, Daphne Zuniga.
Started off in 90210, I think.
Exactly.
Daphne
exactly.
Zugina.
She was
Yeah, I
lovely
remember.
to work with.
Yeah.
And then Missy Kreider, I don't know if you've heard of her.
I've heard of that name too. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And well, actually, one of the highlights was working with the cinematographer, Andre Sekula, who shot the picture.
Okay.
And he was a cinematographer, a friend of mine, and he agreed to do this picture. It was a low budget, but he agreed to do the picture as a cinematographer. And his credentials before that was he was a cinematographer on Reservoir Dogs.
Oh, yeah, I remember that one.
Tarantino.
And the other one that brings them up for me was Straw Dogs, the original with the very sexy
Dustin
blonde
Hoffman.
Dustin Hoffman, and the Suzanne, what's her name? I think she was British.
Reservoir Dogs was Quentin Tarantino and Michael Manson.
Right.
And then Andre Sekula was the cinematographer on Pulp Fiction.
Yeah, classic, isn't it, huh?
Yeah.
It's like Kill Bill. Some of these never die, these things.
Yeah, and the cinematographer, of course, was impeccable. It was, very well done, film. Very challenging, but it was a 1932 period piece where it was about the stand-ins to the major stars, like the stand-in to Katharine Hepburn, the stand-in to Marlene Dietrich, stand-in. And so these 6 women got together in this bar, and they go through the agony and ecstasy of being in the film business, but not being stars.
Right.
They're just stand-ins to the stars. And it has an interesting resolution at the end of the movie. I'm not going to tell you about it.
All right, no, don't do that. That's interesting. Okay. You're bringing up a lot of memories for people here. What about your response? I mean, how hard has it been finding an adequate cast and crew here for this new movie, which we're going to go into in a second?
The problem is there hasn't really been much film through here at all. I mean, in the last 20 years. And a lot of people, to survive, the professionals here have either had to go to Los Angeles or New Mexico or Atlanta, Georgia.
Now, when we're talking about professionals now, this is the whole gamut of the industry, from, cameramen to directors to actors to writers, everybody, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
because there's just no work, right? You're going to starve.
There's no work, so why stick around? Now, I left in 1983 for Hollywood and did a lot of movies there, but also I did a couple of films in Romania. Hollywood is the mecca. It's where all the decision makers are. Okay, and I've come back and forth between Tucson and Hollywood, constantly, because I grew up here. I love it, and it's a great place to make movies. But fortunately, you have to bring a lot of people in from the outside. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if there's there's going to be no quick solution to bringing the film industry back here. On occasion, we'll have films, come here because of the look, the terrain, the proximity. It's only an 8-hour drive from Hollywood to Tucson.
For the big trucks and all the gear. Or do they hire here? Is there enough talent here and equipment, for Hollywood producers and so on to say, look.
In a small picture like myself, yes, I can pick up, 80% of the cast and 80% of the crew here. Yes.
Okay.
For me. But if a bigger film came in, they'd have to bring in, quite a few people.
Well, it's a beautiful area. There's no doubt about it. And weather, when I look at, the weather all across America, I mean, why would you live anywhere else, honestly? And people say, God, how do you live in that 110-degree heat? Well, it's not very long, and it's dry.
You stay inside. You have a car that has air conditioning,
Yeah, there you go. What about this wonderful new movie called Majestic? Now, this was written by whom?
This was written by Rachel Gordon and my son, Sean Marcus Hedley.
Really?
Yeah.
Is it his first attempt?
It's his. Well, no, actually, he's written other screenplays, but this is the first one that's actually in production. He's 18 years old.
Wow.
And
good on him.
He's been working with me. He's visited me on a number of movies. And then just about 3 years ago, I started hiring him on films when he was 15 years old. And he worked as a second assistant director on a film that I did up in Seattle, Washington.
Mm-hmm.
And then I hired him 2 years ago as a first assistant director on a feature that we shot north of Las Vegas.
Where did he do his training? So young. How did he do that?
School of Hard Knocks. I mean, he just, he's been visiting my movies since he was born.
Right. Okay. So he's picked it. He's
As a
learned.
matter of fact, I did a film. One film I am, quite proud of is Visionaires with Zach Galifianakis, the actor. Are you familiar with?
No. No. Tell
Never
me.
seen Hangover.
Yeah.
Hangover.
Yeah.
He's the guy with the beard.
Oh, hang on a minute. Right.
Right.
I got you.
And I hired him on a film up in Seattle. And Sean Marcus came up and visited me, with his mom. And we got to hang out. And Zach, if you see any of his, the guy is, I mean, even on and off set, he is funnier than anything. It's incredible. So, yeah, so my son kind of osmosis-wise has kind of picked up just visiting sets, wherever I'm shooting.
Mm-hmm. So he can do screenplays.
Yeah.
So if I went to him with an idea, for a movie, right, he'd be able to screenplay it and set it up so that it could be shot.
Yeah, well, you know what? Anybody can really write a screenplay. It takes a program, Final Draft, which is a great program. It's like $150.
Oh, online. Okay.
Yeah, and you can write a screenplay. What I got involved in writing was a film that I did years ago in the 80s called Vampire Bikini Beach. Okay. And I'll tell you a quick story how that
All right.
came.
We got time, and I'll tell you a funny one about when I first came to the States, what job I did and what movie I worked on, for what it's worth, but not on the set or as an actor or anything else. Well, I'll tell you now. I was on the bloody phones trying to raise money to make it.
Oh, okay.
I was given a stack of penny leads, as they're called.
Right.
And we were trying to raise money for this second movie of the guy that was the producer of, God, I forget the first one, but it was a massive hit. It was to do with werewolves. Can you remember a movie with...
American...
No, it wasn't that. I'll ask the subconscious. It'll pop back in. So you go ahead. You tell me that funny story.
Okay. Well, anyway, I read a book, and this is for some of your readers that are interested in writing screenplays.
Okay.
Linda Sager, and Sager is Seger.
Mm-hmm.
She wrote a book called Making a Good Script Great. I read the book, in the mid 80s, and I followed her formula. Okay. And within 30 days, I had written a screenplay. And I thought, before I wrote the screenplay, I said, what would be an interesting subject that I would be interested in doing? And back then I thought, okay, well, vampires are always popular and women in bikinis.
Why are vampires always popular? Tell me.
Well, actually, it is, it's a myth that is one of the most exploited since Bram Stoker's Dracula.
There have been some very good produced movies.
Francis Ford Coppola, did Dracula, So, I thought, why not make a vampire beach, a vampire, in Malibu, right? So I said, okay, fine. So I wrote the screenplay, and then I started pitching it around, and there were two people that said, and I only needed $35,000 to shoot it.
Wow, a low budget thing, huh?
Right, low budget. Everybody, all the girls, the crew, worked for very little money. I put it together, but I needed $35,000 to do it because it was going to be shot in 35 millimeter, which is expensive.
Yes, in those days, yeah.
So there were two people one that said, well, let me think about it. And another guy said, well, actually, I gave this one guy like a week to come up with the 35,000. And he always said, call me tomorrow. So
Well, what
so
was the
then-
promise? What was his ROI? What did you offer him? How did he get a guarantee of anything back?
Well, it depends, but he'd get his money back, and then he'd get 10% of whatever we made.
Of the world
So
sales.
anyway, this guy kind of, and this is the hard part, raising money. So
Yeah, I gather it is.
I gave the
Yeah.
guy a week, and then I started talking to another guy that was interested. He got the screenplay, he read it, and he calls me up and he says, "Okay, yeah, I'd like to do this." And I said, "What do you mean?" And he said, "Well, I'd like to put in 35,000." I said, "Well, how soon?" He said, "Come to my office this afternoon." So I go down to the office, pick up the check, take it to the bank. You always cash the check.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, get the money. So I had the money in hand, the 35,000, and I called the other guy. And I says, what about your 35,000? He says, "Mark, I'm so close. Call me tomorrow." I said, "You know what? You're too late."
Well, I don't know. That's burning a bridge.
The
You might
film
want him
made-
again someday.
We sold the film for $250,000. The investor got all his money back. I made about 25,000 myself.
Okay, and he got
And,
10%, so he would have made a nice little
Yeah.
go there. Maybe
So
25,000 on 35. That's like, wow, that's about 80% on his money.
Yeah.
It's a risky thing, but it's darn good returns. The Howling. That's the one, The Howling.
no, I love that movie.
You remember? Now it just popped in. See, that works, ladies and gentlemen. Always ask the subconscious. What the hell am I trying to remember?
Right.
Yeah, so he was doing a second one, and here I am sitting in a booth. Well, I was living in Phoenix, and I had to get something at the time, and I was experienced getting on the phones, ringing these penny leads, trying to get people to put money into the next movie. So
You were doing what we call back in the day telemarketing.
that's it. That's what it was. Yeah, I wouldn't do it now if you paid me $50 an hour. I tell you, I'm too old for that. So machines do it, don't they? How has the response been as far as finding money for this Majestic? Do you want to tell us a bit about Majestic?
The script I've had for a couple of years. Okay, pitched around, and at the American Film Market last November, I started my own distribution company. Hedley International Pictures. Okay,
Cool.
and this Chinese woman was kind of floating through, the market, and a friend of mine spoke to her, said, "Oh, you got to see Mark Hedley. He's got, some films that, that are for sale." So she came in, saw some of my previous films, and she says, "Yeah, this looks really great. But what do you have any films that you're working on now?" And I said, "Well, several. What kind of genre are you interested in?"
Yeah, what talks your cork? Tell me.
Exactly. And she says, "Well, I'd like something that would be good for the Chinese market." And I said, "Okay." So I came up with The Majestic, which is about a young girl, a young teenager that saves the life of a horse. Everybody loves horses.
Yeah,
Okay.
but what's the girl? Chinese?
No, American girl. It's an American movie.
Mm-hmm.
And we're currently casting for the lead role, Scarlett, which, come to think of it, I don't think you're going to make a good Scarlett. Okay, so we'll have to figure something
I'm trying
else.
to understand why you're Chinese, though. Chinese, you mean what, to be shown in China?
No, or she's a very wealthy, she's into, pharmaceuticals and businesses in China and in Seattle, Washington.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
So she's got a big, so anyway, the conversation went very well. And she said, "Well, listen, let me have you come to Seattle and let's sit down and talk about The Majestic." So I got her the script. She loved the script. And she flew myself and the director up to Seattle and spent a week. And she said, "You know what? I want to do this movie. I'm putting the money down." And so we're off and running.
Very nice. Dare I ask you how much you got for the budget on this?
Can't tell you.
Okay. I didn't think you
Actually,
could.
we got to keep budgets, confidential,
Right,
because if
okay.
a distributor or a buyer knows how low a budget is, they're going to lowball me.
Okay. So you do a deal with her. She puts the money in. She is the sole contributor, right?
Correct.
The
Yep.
investor. And you do a deal on how much percentage-wise on all of the sales.
She gets the bulk. She gets 80%. I get 20.
Okay,
So
all right.
She gets her money back first.
And you get a movie made at least, right? It's another credit, another string to your bow.
I get a producer fee going in,
okay.
So I don't have to wait, for a year.
How many movies and great scripts sit on benches and cupboards with dust?
The Writers Guild of America reports that there's 50,000 scripts registered, not just written. There's a few more that are written, but registered with the Writers Guild of America. 50,000 each year.
So when a script is written by somebody, right? Yeah. It's like a patent, is it? It's like a patent. It's their script and it's done.
It's registered with the Writers Guild, meaning nobody else can go in.
Okay, that's what I mean. Script. So the Writers Guild
if there's a lawsuit, if somebody takes your script and tries to do it without your permission, then you have rights to sue them through the Writers Guild of America.
And what happens if they pinch the concept though, and then sort of revamp it a little?
A lot of gray areas. A lot of gray areas. There's lawsuits with Steven Spielberg. Yeah. On Schindler's List. I mean, people come out of the woodwork on the bigger budget, but on the smaller budget, it's not worth, the hassle.
Okay. So Majestic is a horse thing.
With the Writers Guild and also the Library of Congress, double whammy. And that protects that intellectual property.
Okay.
Completely. Okay.
So you got to be a bit careful then when there's these online marketers. I actually gave my idea away of a movie to an online thingo that said, give us an idea and we'll get the thing made for you. And I thought, well, this is a few years ago now, but I thought, well, gee, what have I got to lose? But I never heard anything back. But if I see that movie bob up somewhere one day, I
love to steal ideas, and you can't copyright an idea.
No, you can't. That's
even
the problem.
But with the Writers Guild, you have to have at least 30 pages, to register with the Writers Guild. But you do that, and then you're protected.
Okay, so 30 pages. What about the old thing we used to do for writing other stuff? We could put it into a brown envelope and post the thing to us, so you've got a post date on it.
Well, you can do that too, but a Writers Guild and Library of Congress.
That's enough.
Two professional ways to do it.
Let me ask you about the fun of the game. There must be big celebrations after a wrap before it gets to the cutting room floor.
The wrap party.
The wrap party. And then how long before a thing is ready to sit down and watch it in a theater?
Well, I have a saying that 2 hours and a bag of popcorn to everybody else is a year out of my life. So.
And it's all gone like that. Yeah.
Yep.
But what's it like getting the reaction when you've produced a show or directed it? What's it like sitting there waiting for the crowd to either storm out or clap
your
or
first
boo?
Screening is with cast and crew, which are prejudiced to the movie.
Right.
And will laugh at all the right places.
Yeah.
And
Do they go on with, oh my God, I said that, or do I look like that? Or, oh.
Oh, yeah. It's a celebration. It is a celebration. After all this hard work, the one celebration is the wrap party, usually a week after you wrap. But since we're bringing so many people in from Los Angeles, we'll probably have the wrap party the last day of shooting.
Right,
okay?
right.
So we all party there. We've been together for God knows how long.
All right.
And
it's a nice thing. It's
usually about 3 months to the premiere.
Okay. Yeah, that would be fun. Going to the premiere would be real good fun.
Everybody decks out, and they come and watch their work.
Yep. That's it, and it's work. I mean, when you're getting up at 3 and 4 in the morning, long day shooting, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Yep. What's the earliest you would start, unless you're wanting that,
You know what? I did one film, which I don't like, these hours. I had to be on set for 40 straight hours, 48 straight hours.
Were you physically working?
I was. But also it's an adrenaline rush too. You got things happening. It's not just sitting there, So, and then I had one film shoot where usually it's a 12 to 14 hour day. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I did one film years ago in Los Angeles where it was all night shoots for 24 days. And that was brutal. You have to get on set at 6 at night, leave at 6 in the morning. And this was up in Topanga Canyon in the wintertime, cold.
Okay. All right. No, I can relate to that. Well, I had years in radio, before television, and when you do all shifts across the board, I mean, I started with mid-dawn, and then you work your way in breakfast. I mean, oh boy, you're up early, 3:30, 4, and you're on here at 5. So, and I understand around the clock, and it knocks your body around. It really does.
Yeah.
It's
so
hard work.
One thing I like about getting up at 4 or 5 in the morning, no traffic in Hollywood.
Very good. Yeah.
At 7 o'clock in the morning, forget it.
That's a good point.
But,
well, Mark,
5 o'clock, you go right to set, and then at 8 o'clock, come home.
Just like a day's work, and you make it movies. Listen, Majestic is the name of the movie. We're going to look forward to this. Is there going to be a big thing in Tucson about it when it's ready to be released?
Oh, yes, very much so. A lot of people in Tucson are totally behind it. And we're actually doing another open casting call a week from this Saturday at Southern Arizona Video. And it's open call from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. Anybody can come by. We're looking for, all types.
All sorts. I might just rock down there myself on that.
Yeah.
Where can people find you, mate, if they want to contact you, talk to you, or anything else? I know the website is southernarizonavideo.com. Okay.
Yeah, let me give you the office number.
Okay. Sure. And, it'll be up on the site anyway permanently, along with your photo and so on.
Okay.
You look a little bit like, I'm trying to remember, who's the kid, what's his name, blonde hair? He started young.
Brad Pitt.
No, not Brad Pitt. There's another one. There's another little fella. The Home Alone guy. Who was that?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, we know. The subconscious is done. I don't want to give it another one for now.
Oh, let me give you the phone number real quick. You ready?
Shoot.
Oh, 520.
520.
349.
349.
5717.
5717. Fantastic.
But it's best a week from Saturday, go, from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. Come down.
All right. And that's at Southern Arizona Video Productions. Easy to find?
Yeah. 911 South Tyndall Avenue.
911 South Tyndall Avenue. Just look it up.
Which is north of 22nd and west of Park Avenue.
Right. That's all right. Yeah. Do they want to come in on the interview?
Wait. Is Nick here? Yeah. Nick.
Say hi to Nick for me, will you? Mark, it's been very, very interesting speaking with you. It's a world that people don't know a lot about, really, unless they're in the game, and what goes on behind the scenes. I would love to do a permanent podcast about movies and films and TV.
Oh, actually, this is Scott. He's one of our interns.
Hi.
Pull it. Tell him about Bring Out the Dead.
Oh, Bring Out the Dead. It's
I tell you what, I haven't got you, even though this is audio, but I have got you on Zoom video at the moment. But there's your head. Got you. All right.
See me now?
I got you. And you've got a minute.
A minute. Okay. Well, Bring Out the Dead. It's based on what's happening now, and we kind of take it to the next level. It's kind of like sort of where the virus mutates people into creatures.
You don't think it's what's the word, tasteful? I mean, do you think it's smart right now with the virus? I mean, do you see any issues with that at all?
Yeah, that's a good question.
You have to have a sense of humor.
Okay, all right.
It's kind of done with a sense of humor, I think. That's the way it's presented.
Okay, well then that'll be cool. That's what people have got to see it as then. Yeah.
You got to leave them laughing.
You got to leave them laughing, yeah. And, okay, well, good luck with that.
Anyway, Scott's been with us for about a year now, interning, and now he's going to be producing his first feature film.
Good luck with that, Scott.
Thank you.
Good luck with it, big time. And I'm glad you found your niche in life, yes?
I hope so. Yeah, I think so.
Good on you. All right, Mark Hedley, it's been an absolute pleasure. My special guest on Tucson Means Business. And good luck with Majestic, and we'll see you around the traps, mate.
Excellent. Hopefully see you a week from this Saturday.
All right.
Bye, Mark.
Bye-bye, Lila.